This is my 3-year review of this 2021.5 Kamax KMX 250 MT. I had this one for 100 hours in 3 years, so I thought it could be a very nice time to make a review of this one. This is a Chinese dirt bike that's based off a KTM EXC 250. I have removed all the enduro stuff from this bike, so it will be a little bit lighter. During my 3 years I had this one, I've been riding trail rides, enduro, hard enduro, extreme enduro, motocross and supercross. I kind of have tried it all with this one, and it has actually worked out pretty well for me most of the time. During the time I also perform service and maintenance regularly to keep it in good shape as I could have it in. I have changed, I had clean air filters, I've replaced the gear oil after 10 to 15 hours. I have greased the linkage system, the steering stem and so on, as you should do. I've also done some performance upgrade to the bike. Pretty early on I replaced the stock carb for a Smart Carb SC2. I'm not a good mechanic, so I don't like to do jetting and stuff. I like to have more time to ride than being in the garage. So I replaced it with the Smart Carb, and that was for me very good. It got a bit expensive, but it has been working very well. It's more or less a set and forget solution for this bike. They said it should be more power, about 10%, but I'm not so sure about that. It should also reduce the fuel usage, and I don't know much about that. I didn't ever measure, but it has been working pretty well and amazing for me. 1 month ago I also replaced the reed valves for a Boyesen dual stage power reeds. These ones are supposed to give you a little bit better power in your bottom end, the torque in the bottom end. Since this engine is a Longines engine, 224cc, and it's supposed to have 40 horsepower, which I doubt, but it doesn't have much of a bottom end. This engine is very reliable. It has been used in Yamaha DT230 for a long time, and it is really reliable. Or I haven't had any single engine failures, malfunctions or anything like that. I've replaced, as I said, my gear oil. I also replaced spark plugs around 30-35 hours. I haven't had a spark plug fouling either. The Boyesen power reeds, they have given me a little bit better torque. I can lug on up some hills that I couldn't in third gear before. I can do that now without stalling, and that is really good because that's what it's kind of lacking. This engine works really well for trail riding, enduro riding and motocross too. If you're not riding in deep sand or something where you need a lot more power, I would say this bike, it works really well. So to have a little bit more bottom end from the Boyesen reeds, that really helps, because I am riding more hard enduro, extreme enduro, where I need a lot of bottom end. Talking about hard enduro, I also made a lot of upgrades for hard enduro, as you can see. I have 2 separate videos on what I did, but in short I have replaced the tubes with Mousses of course, and I have replaced my motocross tires with Bridgestone tires, Battlecross X40 in the front and Battlecross E50, and I upgraded to a wider 140 in the rear, and I also have the pull strap in the front, the lift strap in the rear. I have radiator guards, and I also have protection for my discs in the front and in the rear. And I have a protection for the silencer and for the pipe as well. I also replaced the clutch lever. Now I have an easy pull 1-finger clutch lever that is really nice for hard enduro, since I like to have 1 finger on the clutch and you use the clutch a lot. And this one is really easy to pull with this one. I also installed a larger fuel tank. This is 9 liter compared to the 6.5 liter that is stock. And I bought a 30mm lower seat, which is really nice in hard enduro. If you are in some challenging terrain where you can't reach the ground easily, it really helps with the 30mm lower seat. So that's more or less the upgrades I did to the bike. The battery and the electric starter is also awesome. I have been using in tricky situations. I have turned off the engine and I've been letting the clutch out and running the bike on the starter to get out of some really tricky situation. And it doesn't drain the battery. I also forgot to turn off the key because it has an ignition key. I forgot to turn it off for 30 hours and then it just started on the first press of the button after that. So the battery and the starter works really, really well. The suspension on this bike is a SZC, and that is a clone from WP 48mm. Spare part is available for it. It's 98% the same part, not 100%. I have replaced the bushings and oil and dust seals, and that was straight up with the WP spare part, so that was not a problem. The suspension, it's working pretty well if you're riding enduro, trail riding or some motocross. The fork is a bit bouncy, so if you're hitting rocks and roots and stuff, it will be a little bit bouncy. And for hard enduro, it is too hard, way too stiff. I'm running on the softest compression settings I can do, and I also let out some oil, but it is still too soft. I am going to buy new fork springs that fits WP, softer ones, so it will be better for hard enduro. It also actually works pretty well for Supercross, as long as you're landing well. If you're casing a jump or over jumping, then it's not the best. Then it can't compensate for that. I would say it works pretty okay. It's not KYB, of course, it's not, but it works pretty okay for trail riding, enduro and some lighter motocross. And the suspension is of course fully adjustable with compression settings and rebound. It doesn't have preload in the front, this model, and in the rear of course you can set it preload. You have high speed and low speed compression, and you also have the rebound. So it has more or less what the brand bikes have. The brakes, they are also SZC, Chinese brand, and they work really, really well. Last year I bought my Kawasaki KX250F, a 2018 model with Nissin brakes. I have to say, these brakes are better. They are much better braking power and they are durable. I haven't replaced any of the brake pads and I've been riding 100 hours. I've been doing some mud races and riding in the mud, and it's dusty and a lot of different conditions. I can barely see on the brake pads that they have been used. My KX, it has been running 50 hours and I am about to replace the front brake pads. So the brakes really good on this bike. What have I replaced on the bike so far? After some time, some rubber parts didn't hold up. It could be that the harsh Thai weather is wearing it out, because I have other rubber parts, not on dirt bikes, on other things that is actually just breaking down. So I have some of these gaskets or whatever it's called on the cable, clutch cables and wires and so on that were broken just from the harsh weather. And also these rubber thingies holding the air filter in place that I had to replace because they were breaking apart. Also, the air filters doesn't have any good quality. I bought an extra, so I had two of the stock air filters. Both of them broke, so they were not that good. I replaced them with Twin Air and some others, and that works really, really well. That is actually the only thing that I have replaced because it was maybe not the best quality. Otherwise, I have replaced something that I broke due to hard enduro riding, but that I can't blame the bike because I have been abusing it a lot and been riding really, really rough terrain. I have replaced the gear shift lever. I mean, that is normal when you ride hard enduro. Also the rear brake lever. And I also replaced the left radiator since I bent it. It didn't break, it was just bent. So I replaced it to have a new one and I installed the radiator guards. I replaced the stock chain and then with a DID O-ring chain, and then one more time I have to replace the DID chain for 100 hours. I replaced the front sprocket ones, and I also replaced the rear sprocket, but that was not because it was worn, it was because I wanted to have with steel teeth, so it's a little bit more durable when riding hard enduro. So I still have the other one and it's barely worn. This one is not worn either. Some parts that I didn't have to replace yet, but I ordered when I ordered the bike, it is the chain guards. The chain guide and the chain slide and the chain rollers, they are not, it's not time for replacements yet, and it's 100 hours. And as I mentioned, the brake pads I also ordered. I didn't replace that. I also ordered a piston kit, but I haven't replaced that. I haven't even replaced the brake lever because it didn't break. I haven't even bent the handlebars. And if you have seen some of my extreme enduro, hard enduro rides, I've been in some rough stuff and I have tipped over and crashed a lot. So I'm actually pretty stoked how well it's holding up. It is scratched as, yeah, you can see it yourself, it's really, really scratched, but that's a hard enduro bike, right? They should be scratched, kind of. So let's get to the positive with this bike. For me, it's a very reliable bike. I haven't had a single failure while been riding that made me have to go back to the track or go in the jungle and pick it up when it didn't work. It has been working every single time. So it's very reliable. It seems like the quality, it is good. I mean, since I don't even have to change any of the chain guides and anything, that must be really good. The linkage, it was well greased when I got the bike, even better than on the KX, even though it wasn't, of course, a used bike, and the same with the steering stem. The steering stem here, it was really well greased, that one too. Reliable and actually pretty good quality for the money you pay for it. What about spare parts? There isn't any problem, at least not so far, since most of it is based on KTM. All the plastics and a lot of other parts, it's KTM. So you can buy it in your local shop or buy from Alibaba or Amazon or something like that, not a problem. But you need to know that you kind of have to wait, or you have a little bit of a spare part stock at home. The thing that you know that you might need, like a lever tip or brake lever tip or something like that. You have that at home, so you don't have to wait for spare parts. That is a good tip. It's also the same for the engine. All of the engine parts are available on AliExpress, so it isn't any problem at all. When I watch YouTube, I can see that a lot of people, they say when they buy a KTM, the spokes, the spokes, the spokes. You need to check the spokes all the time. Yes, of course you should check the spokes. I have been checking the spokes on this one too. I haven't touched them. I haven't had to tighten them at all. Nothing after 100 hours. My rims, they are still, yeah, they are scratched, but they are perfectly good shape, and there is nothing with that, and that is, I have to say, good quality. It must be. So what about negative things? Is everything positive? No, of course it's not. It is a very heavy bike. When I converted it to a motocross bike, the wet weight was 123 kilos, and that is pretty heavy. I didn't think very much of it until I bought the KX. Then I understood that, holy crap, this is a heavy bike. And then with the Enduro kit that comes stock, it is 126 kilos. That's with the headlight, tail light, and there is some speedo and stuff like that. And I removed all that because I never go out when it's dark, so I don't need it. And now I converted it to a hard enduro bike with the Mooses and a wider tire, and I have all this protection stuff and everything on. I'm actually up to around 133 kilos, and that is heavy. If you compare to KTM, it's about 15 kilos heavier. And that is a lot of weight to carry around on an enduro race for 2 hours or whatever you do. Or if you go to the motocross track. And I tip over pretty much out in the jungle when I go for hard enduro riding. And lifting the bike every time, it wears me out totally. It's not that much the riding, so if I stop tipping over, it wouldn't be that a bigger problem, but hard enduro is hard. So I tip over a lot and I have to lift this 133 kilos. And that is heavy. And as I previously mentioned, the forks, they are a bit bouncy, and if you would like to go supercross, maybe not with this bike, you need to be perfect in your landings, otherwise it's not so good. Since it's bouncy, when I go in the jungle, there is a lot of smaller rocks and stones and roots and stuff, and it is like this. I'm feeling it in my wrists and it's wearing me out. This is one thing that is making me very tired when I'm out riding for an hour and a half or something like that. So that is negative. That's why I'm very soon going to buy the fork springs for the WP, so I can have them softer. And then if you're going to ride hard enduro, the low bottom end torque. It isn't actually really good for hard enduro, but it is fixable to a degree. The reed valves from Boyson, they helped. I have just bought, so I'm going to make some reed block spacer, 6mm, that is supposed to help with the bottom end. I have been looking for flywheel weights or a different flywheel. I haven't been able to find that. If you know where to buy a flywheel weight or a flywheel for this bike, please let me know in the comments. That would be really, really helpful. One issue that I have too, since I ride mainly hard enduro, extreme enduro, is the gearing. It has a 12-tooth sprocket in the front and it came with a 52. That is a little bit too high gearing for my liking for hard enduro. That I would like to have 11 so I could play around with the 52, 51, 50 or something. So that is a little bit of a problem for hard enduro, extreme enduro, but for trail riding, enduro and motocross, it isn't an issue. That is just my riding I'm doing with this bike. It's not optimal, unfortunately. So to summarize my review of this bike after 3 years and 100 hours, it has been a really joy for me to have this bike. I wasn't riding for 35 years before, so this was really nice to get into riding again to a very affordable price. I paid including shipping at that time, paid including shipping and some spare parts and import fees and stuff. I paid like, what was it, $3,400 or something like that. And you can't compare that to a brand bike. I mean, what is it? Some of them you can buy maybe $9,000 for 250, or if you go to the Austrian bikes, then it's a lot more expensive. Yeah, it isn't a Japanese bike, it isn't an Austrian bike. But if you're not aiming for winning the national championships or something like that, if you just want to get into the sport, this bike is actually a good choice. The big difference is that it's affordable, it's pretty easy to find spare parts, so it's to keep it going. That isn't the problem. You will not get the best suspension, you will not get the best engine, but it will be good enough. I didn't know that my suspension was maybe not the best until first I rode my friend's YC250 and KTM EXEF 250. Then I really understood that it was a different. But some riding, this is really, really nice. And it is, as I mentioned, a very good quality. Maybe I've been extremely lucky with this bike, I don't know. But for me, the quality is really good. When I'm making videos about this Chinese dirt bike, there's always some people commenting, buy a used brand bike instead. You can find a good one. Yes, it is possible, but not to the same price. When I bought this KX250F, it was 6 years old, it had 30 hours on the meter. But I had to replace a lot on it immediately. The chain sprockets, chain guide, chain slide, chain rollers, oil seal, the dust seals, and it was not greased well in the steering stem. I found some really bad scratches from the plastic and the frame that is actually around almost 2 millimeters deep. Some things you don't know when you buy a used dirt bike. I paid 40% more for that bike than I bought this bike new. So is it better with a Chinese dirt bike than a used brand bike? Yes, it can be. For me, I actually think I was better off buying this one than a used bike. Performance-wise, yes, this is much more powerful, it's faster, it has better suspension and so on. But I also have had more problems. I had to replace the front rim because it cracked. I went out riding 2 weeks ago and the clutch cable broke when I was 10 kilometers into the jungle. But I could go back without the clutch, so I was a bit lucky. Of course I would like to have a KTM or Husqvarna or Birta or something like that, a proper bike with really great suspension, with a perfect bottom end torque so I could ride a little bit easier and a lot lighter. But it's been a really great bike. If you're looking for something, a bike like this is one way to go if you don't want to break your bank. So thank you very much for watching and have a great day. Bye bye.